I'm very pleased to introduce Katharine Hibbert, freegan, squatter, social entrepreneur, anti-waste campaigner. You can see her on Channel 4, soon, and she's written a book called Free, Life on the Margins of a Wasteful Society. Katharine Hibbert, welcome.
Thanks very much. I come from Oxford, so it's a home crowd, obviously, that's cheering for me. I think the first thing to talk about here is the science, and James has said that he doesn't think that global warming is a problem, and I really don't want to spend this debate talking about, oh yes, it is a problem, oh no, it isn't a problem. But let's just get it very clear that we do have a problem, and anyone who's looked at the research would agree that, unless they were James. Now, if you look at the air temperatures, they're up. All the things that are happening that you would expect to be happening if global warming was happening, they're happening. The air temperatures are up. The humidity levels, they're up. Sea levels, up. Ocean heat content, up. Sea ice, down. Glaciers, in decline. Snow cover, down. If you want the scientific references to this stuff, I've got a blue folder full of them. You can come and see me afterwards. The best theory to explain what's going on here is that global warming is happening. Humans are causing it. It's caused by carbon in the atmosphere. We're producing huge amounts of it. If we don't do something about it, it's going to be catastrophic. Now, that's a theory. It's a theory that Christopher and James dispute. And that's because that's how science works. It works in theories. I'm sure you all know this. You have to spend a minute in a philosophy of science lecture to understand this stuff. It's not maths. You can't prove it deductively. And of course, some people do refuse to subscribe to all kinds of science. You've got people who believe in homeopathy. You've got people that believe that the world was created 10,000 years ago. Dinosaur skeletons and all. And you can't deductively prove that it's false. All you can do is show that it's highly unlikely to be true. And that is what scientists are doing in universities around the world every day when it comes to climate. And now it may be that it's a massive conspiracy. It may be that all those scientists, the Met Office, the BBC, the Economist, the whole lot, it's a huge stitch-up. And that's, I think, what James and Christopher believe. But I'll trust your intelligence as an audience, and I'm not going to labour the point. Because this was supposed to be a debate that was about fun, not about science. We're not really here to talk about whether wind power or biofuels are the best solution to the problem, or whether there's a problem at all. We're here to talk about fun. And it's lucky because, as Tony pointed out, we've got, I believe, someone from the English University, someone with classics, a philosopher and a historian. So I think probably on safer ground if we talk about fun. And really, I think you need to ask yourselves, which team looks like they have a better idea of how to have fun? My perspective on fun. As Tony said, I decided to see whether I could live for free a couple of years ago. It turned out it was not that difficult because of the quantity of waste that's being thrown away. Actually, there is so much sushi. You talk about food, the fish stocks. You should go around the back of every single sushi restaurant and look at the bin bags full of sushi that are being thrown out every day. More actually than you can carry, let alone eat. And I was squatting in some of the 500,000 long-term empty houses, which are owned. A lot of them are publicly owned. We're not talking about holiday houses. We're not talking about people who've gone away on holiday. We're talking about abandoned houses. So I had a roof over my head. I had enough to eat. I didn't have very much else. But what I did have was time, because I didn't need to go to work to pay for my lifestyle, which was, of course, free. And I found some pretty good ways of filling that time up. I went for walks. I read books. I hitchhiked to the Netherlands. I slept a lot. Spent time with my friends. I learned how to play chess. I reminded myself how to knit. Wrote a book. And I found a kind of purpose in life, and I was happy. And I wasn't spending any money. I also wasn't really, you're consuming very much stuff. But I was having a really good time. And I'm certainly not arguing that we should all go out and eat out the food out of the bins. Obviously, logically impossible. But what I am saying is I think that a lot of the stuff that we think is indispensable to having a good time is actually the opposite. I mean, if you're so worried about paying a more expensive price for your next flight so that you can go on holiday, a price that actually reflects the impact of what you're doing, then you're probably not having a good enough time here and now, if that's a real problem for you. And in fact, debating this stuff, the idea that reducing what you consume, the things that the eco-warriors are supposed to be campaigning for, it really reminds me quite a lot of another group of people who've had such a lot of fun in the past couple of weeks. And his fun actually, James has been very keen to spoil from what he's been saying on Twitter, because I'm talking about the rioters. And smashing up your own high street in order to snatch the trainers, the tellies, the gold jewellery, it looked like an absolute riot. They were having a really good time. And I think that everyone, left or right, can agree that something has gone horribly wrong with our communities if anyone's idea of a good time is creating total destruction for the sake of some free shopping. The thing is that this kind of destruction for the sake of more consumption is exactly the same issue whether that destruction is happening in the Niger Delta or in Tottenham. Is that myself? Don't get too excited, I'm not going anywhere. This whole sense that having more stuff is a right, regardless of the consequences of it, is absolutely tragic, and it's doubly tragic because the actual fact is that having a new pair of trainers and a bigger telly isn't what makes you happy. What makes you happy is having a good family, having a work purpose in life, having a sense of where you're going. So I really think that this determination not to change one iota of your lifestyle in order to help to deal with this massive catastrophe that we're all facing really is more or less on a moral par with. Luckily, I'm a wet, politically correct liberal, so I'm not calling for the rubber bullets or the hanging and flogging. But I do think that this sense that the only way to have fun is by consuming stuff is really a symptom of being disengaged from your communities, the feeling that the world no longer has a place for you, that you don't have a role within society. And actually I think that getting together and trying to do something about the problem that we're all facing should be a way of bringing people together and reminding them of what's really important, and it's not shocking and down the consequences.
Yeah, Katharine, it's a very lovely story about you living for free out of dustbins for a year. What can I ask you? If we all did this, what do you think would happen to our economy? I know, but you're talking about that consumption is a bad thing. We are experiencing now what happens when consumption diminishes. What happens is this negative growth. What happens is a lot of suffering. People don't get. If the economy is not thriving, where does the money come from for medical care? Where does it come from for education? Is it from a magic money tree or what?
What we've actually just experienced is the collapse of the pyramid scheme that the banks were running.
That's not what we've seen at all. That's just the left-wing narrative on that. What we're having is the disaster that happens when governments run out of money, other people's money.
So okay, I accept that I don't accept that this recession that we're currently struggling with was purely caused by people stopping shopping. But I think that there is a problem with working out how the economy works when you're not constantly obsessed by growth. The only economists could believe that infinite growth in a finite world is a way to go. There is a problem there. It's something that has to be worked on. But I do not think that anyone who's read Brave New World, it's a world of kind of games of Bumble Puppy, in order to these incredibly elaborate games, in order to use more stuff so that people can create more stuff. That isn't a solution either.
Let's do a little science here. The rate at which the world has warmed over the last 60 years is equivalent to just over 1 Celsius per century. It is now being predicted by the usual suspects on the IPCC that from now until the end of this century it will warm on current emissions at 4 Celsius per century. Can you provide any physical explanation for this very large, more than tripling of the rate of warming we've seen over the last 60 years, given that the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, each molecule we now add, will have less warming effect than its predecessors?
When you say that the world's warmed by 1 degree over the
at a
60
rate
yes.
of equivalent to 1 degree per century.
What I mean, as I say,
on the Hadley Centre's data.
But are we talking about the temperature of the air, the temperature of the...
We're talking about the global mean surface temperature, the monthly anomalies by the Hadley Centre and the CRU.
Well,
the least squares linear regression trend on the 60-year mean.
As I happily admitted at the beginning of my speech, I'm not a scientist. There are some scientists in the audience. There aren't any on the panel.
I'll take that as you can't answer. Thank you.
No, it's not that I can't answer. It's not that I can't answer. What I'm trying to say is, I believe in science.
Ah, you believe. Science is not about belief. Science is about checking.
It's a religion.
Okay, 3 minutes are up. 3 minutes are up. Catherine, thank you very much.